This is Geeky Vices with J-Belle, where I talk about the random bits of geekdom and pop culture I've been into lately. And just so you know, the general gist of this, it is totally unrehearsed, unedited, and unhip. I just go with whatever random whims I feel like watching or getting into lately, and I just talk about it for my own sake. So, yeah, enjoy. And I also will let you guys know that there are sometimes spoilers. I try to being spoiler light, like basically just mostly just setting up the premise and not spoiling any of the big things. But just a heads up, if you want completely pure, no uh, prior information about things, then probably watch my videos after you enjoy the content I talk about. So anyways, this week I am talking about one of Netflix's newest additions, The Umbrella Academy, which me and the significant other binge watched in one weekend, which was great. I am always a sucker for superhero type of things, but I like it when they're more humanized and they have more problems rather than everything be perfect. That's probably why I've always that's probably why Spider-Man's always been one of my favorite traditional comic book heroes, because I like how the media and the public opinion is against him, but he's still doing the right thing. Like, I always like it when it doesn't come easy to them. So that's why I'm more about Spider-Man and Batman versus Superman, where he's too perfect. Too many powers. He's even supposed to be ridiculously smart, and everyone loves him, and it's just too perfect, and it's you're not as interesting of a character. So, yeah. But anyways, Umbrella Academy is great. It's about this quirky family of superpowered people. So basically, back in 1989, apparently there were 40-something women all across the world who started off the day not pregnant, and by the end of it, they had been pregnant and given birth. And this crazy professor guy, Professor Hargreaves, finds 7 of these kids and generously compensates the families and raises them, and when they develop powers, basically raises them to become superheroes. So six of them show clear powers. So those ones are superheroes, and then there's one extra one which I will talk about. But yeah, so I'm just gonna go over some of the characters real quick, and I'll try doing this speedily because there's a lot of characters, but I want to get to a few other things first. I'm trying to avoid being spoilery of anything major. So let's start with the Umbrella Academy actual kids. There's Luther, who is number 1. All the kids were given numbers. The father didn't actually give them names. The robot mom he built for them gave them names. So that gives you a little bit of an idea about their childhood, if things like their source of love and support was actually from a robot rather than their actual human father figure. So yeah, but anyways, Luther always obeyed orders. He's big and strong. He's definitely the tank. He's definitely the tank of the group, and he's personality wise, he's definitely the Cyclops of the group in that he always wants to follow the rules. He is the leader. He doesn't really do well with someone else trying to take lead or argue with him, because he's convinced hey, I was assigned to be the leader, you got to listen to me. So yeah, that's Luther, and he has a really close relationship with Allison, who I'll go into. Number 2 is Diego, who his ability is that he can make curved things that he throws, so usually knives. So basically, I think it's a slight telekinesis. Then we're going to go into it, but basically he is really agile and a really good fighter. So I would say he's very Batman-y. Because becomes a vigilante and kind of somewhat works with the police, but also kind of the police are kind of telling him to stay out of the way, and he has that complicated relationship with the police, including his romantic interests. And Diego is always convinced that he should be the leader of the group, although he doesn't really do much better than Luther does. But yeah, so that's Diego, number 2. Number 3 is Allison, who I believe should be the real leader of the group, because she is the heart of the group that everyone seems to love and respect. But also, she tends to have the best insight and instincts and plans, and they need to listen to her rather than all the boys getting into their bullshit together. But Allison's ability is that she has basically this power suggestion where she says, I heard a rumor. And like the best example is they do a flashback when they're kids fighting crime, and she tells one of this bank robbers that I heard a rumor you shot your friend in the foot, and then he literally shoots his friend in the foot. So that gives you an idea of her ability. And the thing is that the Umbrella Academy, like, they were world famous. Like, there were comic books, there were action figures, like, people, there was merchandise, like, people knew about them. And the thing is that Allison is an actual legitimate celebrity outside of that. And part of it's, like, she's used her ability over the years to get acting roles and such, and basically get whatever she wants. But she's also interesting because she's had, I think, more of an adult life than a lot of the other ones did, because she's actually going through a divorce right now. I mean, she's had a significant relationship, and she lost custody of her daughter. So the fact that she has a daughter, like, as I said, like, it makes her a little bit more, I think, grown up than the rest of the group, because, like, I think everyone else is just stuck in their own selfish bullshit. Oh yeah, that reminds me, Luther. He is so loyal to what the father wants. He's been on his own on the moon for years collecting data because the dad told him to, without giving him a clear reason. So yeah, just so to give it an idea. But yeah, Allison and Luther have this really close dynamic, but I think that Allison should really be the leader. I think most of you will agree when you watch through. I'm pretty sure Klaus is number 4. I'm going to tie him in with, who, I believe the one to be number 6, because like Klaus and Ben, you guys could talk about together. So let me start with Ben. So Ben, it seems like he was at a time probably the heart of the group. Like, he seemed like he was very sweet, and his ability, I've been told after the fact that apparently he can make interdimensional beings appear through his skin. Basically what we see is that a lot of times he'll have these crazy interdimensional, like, tentacles come out of his belly. So, like, he has this crazy strength, and we find out that Ben unfortunately passed away years ago. So they don't go into the specifics of what happened or how, but I would love to see more Ben. Although we kind of do because of Klaus. Because Klaus's ability is that he can channel the dead. So he can talk to the dead. He can talk to Ben. So Ben is haunting him, legitimately on him. And Klaus's ability, it does thankfully progress later, because basically Klaus is dead in himself all his life because the father would do asshole shit like lock Klaus in a crypt for like a couple days to help him get over his fear of the ghost he could see. And so he's been basically on drugs and alcohol and basically as sober as he could be for 10 years. And so his powers are kind of deadened, but he becomes more and more sober as things escalate in the series. And so we get to see his abilities progress. But as I said, when you talk about Klaus, you gotta kind of bring Ben in the mix, because as I said, Ben is always there kind of like trying to egg Klaus on to do the right thing. So Ben's kind of like his conscience that he just kind of ignores, but Ben is there. Like, it was kind of like, and sometimes it's unclear, like, if how much of it Ben is a figment of his imagination, but I think it's safe to say that Ben is legitimately, like, watching out for Klaus. And then there's, I'll talk about number 5 last, but, so number 7 is Vanya, who had no clear abilities. Like, the father would, throughout her entire life, just emphasize her how ordinary and unspecial she was. And she would never be allowed to join in with the other kids with, like, trying to do the crime fighting or anything. So she was just kept separate. So they go off on, on trips and everything, and she'd just be left alone, like, at the house alone with, like, the mom and play her violin. So Vanya's actually a musician, and she is wonderfully played by Ellen Page, which is one of the original reasons why I wanted to watch this series, because I love Ellen Page. She's always so, I don't know, she just has so much empathy and intelligence to her. So, like, I'm always just drawn to her. And yeah, even though I identify as a straight woman, if I was into girls, Ellen Page would totally be my type, along with Emma Watson. But yeah, those are like my 2, like, if I was into girls, which I'm not, but I still adore them and love basking and watching them do their things. But yeah, so she does a great job. But yeah, Vanya is the outsider because she has no abilities. The father always kept her separate, and like so all the kids kind of grew up like keeping her out of the loop, like treating her as this other. Like, even though she grew up in the same house with them, like, she was never part of the Umbrella Academy the way the rest of them were. Like, the rest of them had tattoos. Like, they were giving tattoos when they were kids because the dad was so messed up and like wanted them to have this teamwork. Although, which I will say, like, the dad totally messed up in that regard. Like, he totally, like, made it so that way they were so dysfunctional and they don't work together very well because he just made them so alienated from each other. I mean, not just from him, but they're alienated from each other because he just didn't understand how to raise kids, like, on an emotional level. He just saw them in terms of, like, kind of like a scientific, like, from a scientist's perspective rather than from a parental perspective. So it's just like he didn't understand, like, actual child development, like actual children's needs. So yeah, he's a crazy man, and most of them have very mixed feelings about him when they are all brought back together for his funeral at the beginning of the series. And yeah, like, I think Loser's the main one who still loves the dad, but everyone else, like, has major issues. But yeah, as I said, Vanya, like, she's a musician, but she also was further alienated from the group because she published a book, an autobiography about herself, which basically became called Extraordinary, which is basically a tell-all about her upbringing, which means that she was talking about everyone else. And so they hold that as a grudge against her. So in addition to always being alienated because she was the non-special one, and so basically she was always just a liability, and they just, even with just the brainstorming stuff, they never think to remember her. Like, she's just always this other figure to them. She further got alienated because she pissed them off by the book, because they all feel very betrayed by that. But Allison's the main one who does reach out. And actually, number 5 is also cool with her, who I will go into right now. So number 5, his ability is that he can jump through space. And he always wanted to try jumping through time, but the father told him not to. He's like, you know what, I'm going to try doing it. And on his first try, he jumps too far and jumps forward into the apocalypse, where he does find Vanya's book and reads it and tells her, oh yeah, it was pretty good. But I'm sure no one really liked you afterwards for doing that. But yeah, he basically has the mind of a 58-year-old, but he's stuck back in his 13-year-old body because of complicated reasons. But he's basically trying to stop the apocalypse, which is supposed to happen in a few days. So that's basically the very beginning of the series, is all of this. And then we find out that there are people who are trying to stop number 5 from stopping the apocalypse, like all these assassins, which are awesome, the awesome Hazel and Cha-Cha, who, I believe Cha-Cha is played by Mary J. Blige. Like, I usually like musicians as actors, more so than I like actors as musicians, if that makes sense. Like, I like when Felicia Keys, like, acts, or, I haven't seen that much of Lady Gaga, but, you know, like, I usually am more so for singers trying to act than actors trying to sing. Just my personal take. But yeah, she does great, but I love Hazel, and I'm rooting for Hazel and his love interest, who are so cute and so unexpected, but so sweet. But yeah, like, they are these assassins that are trying to stop number 5 from stopping the apocalypse. And yeah, those are, like, basically all the major characters. I will say vibe of the show is very much X-Men. I mean, you've heard me make X-Men references already with Cyclops. Like, the more you watch it, especially towards the end, you'll definitely very much understand why I keep on being like, okay, I see X-Men. I mean, it's all these misfit kids with different abilities brought into one house. Like, it's very, very X-Men. But the other thing it really reminds me of is the Watchmen, which I've heard that I found out that the series was also created in the 80s, like the Watchmen, and apparently it's supposed to be an alternate timeline, someone told me. But yeah, so it's like, it does definitely feel like the Watchmen, the fact that, like, there's the very different scales of some people's abilities. Like, number 5 feels kind of closer to Ozymandias, where it's like he's ridiculously smart, and like, versus, like, someone being like Klaus's ability, where it's like, you can, or Diego's ability, where it's like, I mean, Klaus can just, like, I can channel the dead, but it doesn't help me fight usually. Or Diego, where it's like, yeah, I have a little bit of a cool ability, but it's mostly I'm just a badass without my abilities. So yeah, but yeah, so if you like the Watchmen, the X-Men, it's great. I would say that the twists, you can see them coming. I mean, you still enjoy the ride, but there's nothing, like, earth-shattering about them. Like, you kind of just see them all building up. Although I guess, like, one of the twists wasn't that important of one to me, because, like, when we find out, like, the circumstance of the father's death, it's like, you kind of don't care that much at that point. You're just kind of like, eh. But yeah, so, but as like most of the other twists, like, it's like, odds, if you're used to seeing twists like I am, like, and I mean, they're pretty obviously coming, but as It's a fun ride. It has a great soundtrack. I love, one of the best scenes is when, like, someone finds a old record of, like, of Tiffany, and it's like, and they play, like, I Think We're Alone Now, and basically, like, everyone's in their own separate room, like, dancing to that one song, and it's just, it's so great. It's so great. And like I said, so, like, it has a really fun, great soundtrack, great visuals. It's really well done, and I'm really hopeful that they're going to have a second season, because it does feel like it leaves on a cliffhanger. So I really hope it builds up to that. But yeah, overall, great series. Ellen Page is great as usual. She was very well cast for the role of Anya, and I honestly, like, parts of me kind of remember, like, especially watching number 5, I also kind of think of Ellen Page's time as Shadowcat. So yeah, but yeah, furthering the X-Men vibe. Like, as I said, there's so many things, like, as I said, like, I think of Cyclops and Shadowcat, and there's some Jean Grey type of stuff that comes into my mind. It's like, as I said, like, there's, I guess, like, also a little bit of Nightcrawler-ishness too from. So yeah, like, as I said, like, there's definitely X-Men vibe, and as I said, like, it's also the Watchmen vibe, where, like, it's kind of like this dysfunctional group, and, like, some people, like, people definitely have varying degrees of issues and varying degrees of powers, and, like, how it's kind of like this dystopian thing is, like, looming, and just, like, how there's all these bigger forces at work, and yeah, just, and these conspiracies and everything. It's like, it's stuff. Yeah, it's fun. I highly recommend it. I had a great time watching it. I actually look forward to rewatching again, just to, like, know some of the little details. But yeah, anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. Continue enjoying your own geeky vices, and until next time, bye.